Is there a happy medium to be found between recoil mitigation and not being the guy that clears the firing line with your obnoxious-ass muzzle brake? Stay tuned. What is up, guys? My name is John with PewPewTactical.com, your definitive source for gun reviews, gear guides, and all things that go bang. Really loud bang. If you've been shooting for any length of time, you're probably familiar with how different muzzle devices can affect your specific gun's performance. In a very general sense, flash hiders are usually meant to reduce the amount of burning gases exiting the barrel that can be detrimental to the vision of the shooter in low light conditions. Linear compensators, usually kind of cylindrical in nature, give the gases an area with larger volume to expand into while still directing them forward, which, because of spooky physics, still reduces overall recoil as compared to letting the gas vent all willy-nilly like. And muzzle brakes take that same principle, but wind up venting the gases laterally, which usually reduces recoil pretty drastically. Now, obviously, the best muzzle device for me might not be the best muzzle device for you. It depends on a ton of things, like your specific firearm, what configuration it's in, what cartridge it's chambered for, what you're doing with it, so on and so forth. You probably get the idea, but one thing that we can probably all agree on is that muzzle brakes suck to stand next to. Again, speaking very generally here, but this is due to the fact that if you are unlucky enough to be standing next to somebody on the range that has a muzzle brake with a bunch of ports like this one, or you happen to be our brave videographer, what you're actually doing is subjecting your body to the shockwaves that firearms produce when you fire them. The muzzle report that you actually hear when a gun is fired is largely due to the fact that you are accelerating an object past the speed of sound. And much in the same way that aircraft also create a supersonic boom at the point that they begin traveling faster than sound, what you're actually hearing and feeling is the resulting shockwave, or a sudden spike in pressure followed by a sudden drop in pressure when the speed of an object, in this case a bullet, is faster than the speed at which the surrounding medium, in this case air, transmits sound. The gases that result from the ignition of gunpowder in each cartridge that you fire essentially are traveling through a very highly pressurized system in your barrel. And the resulting explosion that occurs when those gases reach the end of your barrel and encounter the normalized atmospheric pressure, being the air that surrounds it, create shockwaves, and that's a phenomena that we refer to simply as muzzle blast. So it makes sense then that if you're harnessing the resultant shockwaves and forcing them out to the sides of the muzzle with a ported muzzle brake, rather than sort of just letting that explosion expand in a spherical pattern like it would naturally tend to do, what you're actually doing is subjecting anyone nearby to miniaturized versions of the same physical forces that occur when jets break Mach 1. And as much as we've probably all had a laugh when you clear out all the FUDs from their bench rest with your ported AR, that's honestly kind of a shitty thing to do. But even if you are a complete sociopath that doesn't particularly care about the gooey inside bits of anybody standing near you when you're firing a gun with an aggressive muzzle brake, you might be interested to know that muzzle brakes actually can cause a fair amount of issues for you as a shooter. Again, depending on what you're actually doing and the sort of environment that you're shooting within, but those same shockwaves, that physical force, can have a pretty gnarly effect on any sort of debris that might be around you. I've actually been running this 3-port Faxon brake on my personal gun for the past few years, and while I absolutely dig the fact that it cuts my muzzle rise effectively down to nothing, I ran into my first hiccup during our night shoot late last year when one of the courses called for engaging about 100 meters steel in the prone with an IR laser. And after my first shot, my visibility dropped to near nothing as a result of the loose sand, dirt, and rocks the brake had launched from the berm I was laying on. As you might imagine, a swirling cloud of bullshit dust that my laser is now diffused through makes for pretty hard follow-up shots, and while that same effect isn't quite as pronounced during the day, it is still there, and I probably don't have to tell you why having an obscure target is unideal at best and kind of a flagrant violation of firearms safety protocol at worst. So where then am I going with any or all of this? Any of this? Whatever. I recently had the opportunity to check out a really interesting muzzle device combo from Surefire, and in short, that combo solves pretty much most of the issues mentioned above. Surefire's 5.56 muzzle brake is a decent enough muzzle device on its own, although with its 2 ports instead of my Faxon's 3, I did notice a slight increase in muzzle climb, but again, it's an AR and overall it's still pretty minimal. But the cool thing here is that the brake includes Surefire's QD suppressor attachment system at the base of the device itself, and while I don't own a suppressor, Surefire also makes a linear compensator called the Warden that utilizes that same QD suppressor attachment system. The result is that I've now got a reasonably modular system that allows me to just run the brake if I want to, or if I'm worried about punishing homies if we're all shooting together, I can always throw the Warden on, or, you know, if I want to avoid situations where I'm worried about kicking up debris that has a non-zero chance of generating crackpipe-based shrapnel based on the really shitty desert areas that we shoot within. It's a nice option to have. You don't want that. As you can see, because the Warden isn't letting those expanding gases vent out freely to the sides, even shooting in this comically sized pile of bullshit is noticeably much easier, and with only a very slight jump in felt recoil as well. As the quick, detached nature might imply, the entire setup's a breeze to don or doff to your heart's content, requiring only that you seat it properly and ensure it's slipped all the way down onto the brake before giving it a quick turn and feeling that ratchet lock on. And this is going to be the part that, without fail, causes the keyboard commandos down in the comments to screech about California or whatever, but one of the coolest parts about this setup to me is that it should be fully compliant with California's current featureless regulations if you're going for a featureless build. And I'm not going to go into detail about what exactly that entails. You can do your own research if you are interested in that. But given how scant opportunities are in California to get excited about any potential cool stuff that we might be able to own, I'm gonna take the W, and you will not take it from me. Now the downside, because of course there is a downside. For whatever reason, absolutely no retailer online has these in stock right now. I don't know why there is a sudden burst in their popularity, but I'm not exaggerating, you cannot find them anywhere. And that leaves only the secondhand market as an option to scour through if you are actually interested in picking one up. And given the fact that I watched some very powerful brain geniuses drive up the cost on several different eBay bids to almost $350 3 days before the auction ended for, again, a muzzle device, good luck, friends. You're gonna need it. There's also the ever-present internet rumor mill to contend with, and if you dig around, you can find some older posts kind of talking about an apparent POI shift that might occur between the normal Surefire brake and when you throw the Warden on it. And while that didn't appear to be a thing that we encountered, I don't have a high enough round count on this particular rifle in this setup to say conclusively one way or the other, so be aware of that, your mileage may vary, etc. If, however, any of the above has grabbed your attention, I'd absolutely recommend seeing if you can track the setup down, as even just knowing that I have the option to shoot with friends without gelatinizing them or run drills with the boys, or avoid summoning a vortex of hantavirus-laden desert dust when shooting prone are perks that are worth the admitted pain in the ass that sourcing the required parts entailed. Alright guys, that's gonna do it for us today. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the content, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel, as we probably have more physics concepts that I may attempt to poorly explain to you at some point in the future. We've also got shirts, so you can check that link right down below for the link to those. My name is John, this is Pew Pew Tactical, and we will see you next time.